Tonight, Russian troops are closing in on Kyiv. Video from Ukraine showing a Russian convoy ambushed outside the capital. But U.S. officials now say Russian forces are just miles from the city center. The growing calls for Putin to face war crime charges after the deadly bombing of a children's hospital. Plus, a look inside a Ukrainian city already under Russian control. Soldiers patrolling the streets. Peace talks today again ending with no progress. And Vice President Kamala Harris in the region after the White House warned Russia might use chemical weapons. Also tonight, U.S. inflation hitting another 40-year high. Items like lunch meat and baby food seeing a major jump in price. And it comes as gas prices continue to soar. Is any relief on the way? Sentencing day for Jussie Smollett after the actor was convicted of staging a racist and homophobic attack on himself and lying to police. The emotional moments inside the courtroom, including Smollett's grandmother asking the judge to send her to prison. Director arrest outrage. The new body camera footage showing police briefly detaining Black Panther director Ryan Coogler after he was falsely accused of being a bank robber. The bank and even police are now apologizing. Plus, the NBC News investigation into a juvenile detention facility in Louisiana. A former employee saying children are held in solitary confinement for up to 24 hours a day, some even shackled. The exclusive video from inside. And hero officer speaks. The police officer purposely crashing into a drunk driver who was driving on a bridge that was closed for a 10K race. What she says about that life or death decision. Top story starts right now. Good evening, I'm Gabe Gutierrez in for Tom. We begin Top Story tonight with breaking news. The U.S. says Russian troops are moving in on Kyiv. Ukraine releasing new video appearing to show strikes on Russian tanks outside the capital. But senior U.S. defense officials saying today Russia's troops have made significant progress towards the city center. Moscow accused of war crimes after a hospital bombing left at least 3 people dead, including a child. And as more Ukrainian cities come under siege. In Chernihiv, the mayor says they are running out of space to bury bodies. A key port city is now under Russian control. Hundreds arrested so far and residents struggling to find food. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris meeting with Poland's president in Warsaw, saying the two countries are still united, despite confusion over a delivery of fighter jets to Ukraine. Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine again ending with no resolution as this war enters its 3rd week. Richard Engel leads us off again tonight.
The direct negotiations between Ukraine and Russia in Turkey today went nowhere. Ukraine's foreign minister saying Russia is demanding the government's surrender, and his Russian counterpart denied his country even invaded Ukraine, insisting it's merely carrying out a limited military action to defend Russia. He also denied that Russia bombed a maternity hospital yesterday, dismissing what he called pathetic outcries about it, and claiming Ukraine staged the whole thing. Russia appears to be living in an alternative reality now, driven by one man, President Vladimir Putin, who in a televised address declared Russia will overcome sanctions, noting they're causing surging gas prices in the U.S., while Ukrainians continue to put up a tougher than expected fight. We went to see the frontline suburb of Irpin, defending the capital.
The Russians control part of this district. The Ukrainians control other parts, but the front line isn't straight. There are pockets. There are a lot of abandoned cars here, and the soldiers have just been going through, looking for a car with keys in it and some gas, and now it's transport. The streets here are completely empty, and the biggest risk is that you turn a corner, and they're the Russians. A Russian tank, Russian APC.
Irpin is largely deserted, which has created opportunities. Ukrainian soldiers arrest 5 suspected looters with backpacks full of alcohol. The local mayor wouldn't stand for it. As the suspects were taken away in a bread truck, we saw the scale of what Russia is unleashing. Nothing short of collective punishment to try to beat Ukrainians into submission.
Russia continues to insist that it is not targeting civilians, not bombing civilian areas. But just on the outskirts of Kyiv, you can see Entire areas have been wiped out, and more strikes are happening right now.
As plumes of smoke rose in the distance, Andre, who has family and business in Texas, handed out thermal scopes and radios, bought with money in part donated by Americans. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the victims of that Russian strike in Irpin Sunday. 3 members of a family killed as they tried to escape the Russian advance. 43-year-old Tatiana Parabanis, her 18-year-old son Nikita, and her 9-year-old daughter Alisa. Tatiana worked for a company based in California.
She loved her family and she was very proud of her kids. She gave them all she could.
Today in Irpin, we met 84-year-old Valentina. With each step, she prayed. Dear Jesus, she whispers, let us live through the day in happiness and destroy Putin and expel him from Ukraine.
Gabe, the latest U.S. military assessment is that Kyiv could be encircled in 1 to 2 weeks and captured in 6. But based on the pace of the Russian military offensive, it could take even longer than that. But also looking at the way Russian troops are advancing, very similar to the Russian strategy in Syria, which is to punish civilian population centers in a grinding, slow assault, the death toll here could be extraordinarily high. Gabe?
Richard Engel in Kyiv as Russian troops close in. Richard, thank you. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, the first major Ukrainian city has fallen. Kherson, a port city of 300,000, is now under Russian occupation. Hundreds under arrest tonight, and the mayor says they only have enough food to last a week. Matt Bradley also in Ukraine for us tonight.
Kherson, Ukraine offers the first glimpses of Russia's occupation. After 2 weeks, Kherson is the first and only major city to fall to Russian forces. Last week, its residents were proudly protesting against Russian troops. But that's all changed.
Not only they blockade us from food and medicine and basic necessities, but also they are preparing to imprison those who disagree, those who protest.
400 people were arrested yesterday, according to the Ukrainian military. One big difference, local residents tell us, the appearance of the Rosvagordia, Russia's National Guard. This paramilitary force was created in 2016 and answers directly to President Putin. They're mostly deployed in Russia as riot police. Now they're in Kherson, suppressing dissent the same way they do in Russia. In this video of a protest, Russia's version of a police wagon. The National Guard are checking social media, looking around for their apartments, Kherson's mayor said. They're even looking for the people who were fighting against the Russians in 2014. This city is being strangled. The mayor says they have only about a week of food left, and locals accuse the Russians of looting. In this video, soldiers appear to be pushing a shopping cart full of goods from a store. In another video, a person in a military uniform appears to shoot at the door of an electronics store. When it doesn't open, he busts a hole in the glass. The mayor warned that while Kherson is the first city to face occupation, it won't be the last. This war isn't between Russia and Ukraine, he said. That's just one of the steps for Russia. Russia's fighting right now with Europe and the U.S. An occupation that many here say is on the march.
And Matt Bradley joins us now from Lviv. Matt, despite that occupation, Russia and Ukraine have reached some tentative agreements for humanitarian corridors, right?
Yeah, that's right, Gabe, but neither of them are really game changers. We saw one in the town of Sumy. That's been done before, and the other one is from Zhytomyr, which is sort of near where I am here, up to Chernobyl, that defunct nuclear power plant that was the site of that disaster back in 1986. Now, that one is just so that maintenance workers can go in and fix the electrical cords to that plant, allowing it to avert a nuclear disaster. So both of these, they're pretty unique, and they're not really meaning that we're going to see some sort of, diplomatic breakthrough. Gabe?
Matt, thank you. Next tonight, the vice president also meeting today with Ukrainian refugees. They're the people at the heart of this crisis, with more than 2.3 million fleeing their homes. Kelly Kobieja is in Poland, where more than half of them have gone.
Every day in Poland, the same heartbreaking sight. Thousands of women and children dragging suitcases, carrying backpacks, fleeing war. 16-year-old Diana Prutska escaped Kyiv.
What was it like there? There was not comfortable to stay there because every night we heard.
It's okay. It's okay.
Very horrible sounds every night.
Poland now hosting 1.4 million refugees from Ukraine. More than 100,000 arrive every day. Teacher Natalia Sodorenko fled with her sister and their children. Her son showing us what he brought from home.
Snacks.
Yeah. Food, his phone, and nothing else.
That's all. That's it.
She told me she's grateful for Poland's help. We didn't expect to be welcomed with open hearts, she says. A real concern after huge anti-migrant protests in Warsaw in 2015. When Poland closed its borders to Syrians fleeing that war. Now, doors and hearts are wide open.
What was this before? Just a meeting room?
That was the office.
CEO Bartosz Svarczek has turned his gaming company offices into a shelter for up to 50 refugees.
I have never seen something like this in Poland. Like every house is open. Every family is asking, how can we help? What can we do?
People are asking that same question across Eastern Europe, trying to ease the pain and heartbreak of war. Kelly Kobieja, NBC News, Rzeszów, Poland.
Turning now to the U.S. response to the crisis. Vice President Harris in Poland today also addressing the confusion over Polish jets being sent to Ukraine, as the U.S. ambassador to the UN says Russia has committed war crimes. Peter Alexander has the details.
Tonight from Vice President Kamala Harris on the ground in Poland, concern and condemnation, denouncing the strike on a Ukrainian maternity hospital.
We have been witnessing for weeks, and certainly just in the last 24 hours, atrocities of unimaginable proportion.
And now one of America's top diplomats becoming the first senior U.S. official to accuse Russia of war crimes.
They constitute war crimes. They are attacks on civilians that cannot be justified by any in any way whatsoever.
Though U.S. policy calls for a thorough international investigation, Harris tonight reinforcing the U.S.'s commitment to its European allies.
The United States is prepared to defend every inch of NATO territory.
The vice president dismissed any disconnect after the U.S. rejected Poland's offer to hand over fighter jets to the U.S. to transfer to Ukraine. But Ukraine's president and top Republicans are demanding the jets be delivered now.
They're better at running their own war. They know what the conditions on the ground are. They're there, we're not.
Top intelligence officials say the U.S. believes Ukraine is not using all of the fighter jets it already has, and that the U.S. is providing what Ukraine needs most, more anti-aircraft and anti-tank weapons.
And Peter Alexander joins us now from the White House. Peter, in the past few days, we've also been hearing about allegations that the Russians may try to conduct a false flag operation before using chemical weapons. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Gabe, U.S. officials have publicly warned that Russia might potentially be preparing to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine, saying that Russia could try to falsely blame Ukraine or even the U.S. for a chemical weapons strike of its own first to justify that attack. The White House today saying that Russia has a history also of inventing what it called outright lies like this. And tonight the White House says it's not going to draw any red line that would trigger sending American troops to Ukraine if Russia launched a chemical attack, though officials here say the U.S. has not let any Russian attacks go unanswered so far. Gabe?
Peter, thank you. We want to bring in retired four-star general and NBC News military analyst, General Barry McCaffrey. General McCaffrey, what do you make of these latest developments? How concerning is it now that Russian forces are moving to try and encircle Kyiv?
Well, it's the center of gravity of this entire war. Huge population, 3 million people being bombarded daily, standoff attacks from ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, aerial attacks, artillery fire. It seems to me obvious the Russian military objective is to terrorize these civil populations as a means of forcing Ukraine to capitulate. So, And I joined the UN ambassador saying at face value, it's obviously a deliberate war crime action by the Russian armed forces.
And two retired former top U.S. commanders in Europe, General Breedlove and Lieutenant General Hodges, are calling for a limited humanitarian no-fly zone over the humanitarian corridors in Ukraine. Is that a workable plan?
No, I don't think so, not at all. You know, I've watched this over the years. What Ukraine does need and would treasure is an immediate intervention by U.S. unilateral air power or NATO to knock Russian aircraft out of the skies over Ukraine, and then to go after their ground S-400 anti-missile capabilities, which is actually across the border in Russia, and to engage air defense units that are inside Ukraine. It's out-and-out war against the Russians. That's a political decision. President Biden and his team are trying to avoid widening the conflict.
And General, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov was in talks today with Ukrainians in Turkey, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast. That was a meeting of the highest-ranking diplomats since the invasion began. There was no progress, but at the end, Lavrov even said we didn't attack Ukraine in the first place. Obviously, quite the statement that, it's just so questionable. But does Lavrov's attendance give you any reason to hope that the Russians could be starting to look for some sort of way out, some sort of off-ramp?
Well, I think poor Mr. Putin made a series of disastrous strategic decisions, some of which were simply outlandish. The thought you could take over a 40 million person country the size of Texas, even with 200,000 troops. He misjudged the international immediate abhorrence of what he's carrying out. His military has turned out to be at an operational level of war enormously ineffective. And tactically, the Ukrainians are beating their socks off him using smart munitions. He's stuck. He'll never back out of this. So the question is, can we create a new political and economic reality that forces him to take into account his own country starting to suffer, in particular economically, from the sanctions? But it's a dreadful situation. The future looks extremely grim to me.
General McCaffrey, thank you so much for joining Top Story. To the latest on the U.S. economy, some sobering news for consumers. Inflation growing worse in February amid the escalating crisis in Ukraine and mounting food and energy costs. The Consumer Price Index increasing a staggering 7.9%. Prices are the highest they've been in more than 40 years. For more on that, we want to bring in CNBC.com's finance editor, Jeff Cox. So, Jeff, thanks so much for joining Top Story. In late 2021, inflation had started to trend in the right direction, and it seemed like there was a reprieve for consumers. But now it looks like we're heading in the wrong direction. Is this driven purely by rising fuel prices, or are there other contributing factors?
No, there are across-the-board costs that are contributing to this meteoric rise in inflation that we've seen over the past year or so. As you say, this is the highest inflation level that we've seen since early 1982. Energy certainly playing a huge role here. Gas prices had been trending higher for the past several months, and of course now the war in the Ukraine has only made matters worse with energy sanctions being filed against Russia. But on top of the energy prices, we're also seeing much higher food prices. They were up about 1% just for the month of February. So you could extrapolate that out over the year, and you could see where that's heading. Some of the kind of staples, ham, steak, those kind of things, lunch meat prices going way up. And then on top of that, we also see rising shelter costs, which that Consumer Price Index that you spoke of, shelter costs make up about 1/3 of that. And those prices are rising at about the highest level in some 30 years. So a lot of troubling signs, not just inflation playing a big role, but a tough time for consumers here.
And, the United Arab Emirates has floated the possibility of increasing oil production to fill the void caused by the ban on Russian oil sales. If they and other OPEC countries do that, is it going to be enough? And how soon should consumers see evidence of that at the gas pump and in the grocery store?
Well, there will be a big chess game that's being played here now. You hear the administration talk about releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Anything that happens, though, is going to take a while. One of the problems, and I think this is one of the things that really frustrates consumers a lot, is that risk premium that's built into prices. So it's not just what the distributors and the energy giants, what they're paying for oil today. It's the fear premium of how prices are going to trend over a period of time, because they need to be able to have enough money on hand to buy oil in the future. So it's not just what's about happening today. Now, if the Arabs do kick up production, if OPEC comes through, that will certainly provide some backstop, some comfort, but it will be a while before consumers actually see any real impact. We're probably talking something more like months rather than days or weeks.
Jeff Cox with CNBC.com. Jeff, thank you. We turn now to the weather. Millions in the Northeast bracing for a bomb cyclone heading their way. The region already getting hit with a wintry mix yesterday. Heavy snowfall, rain, and freezing temperatures creating dangerous driving conditions. And in Alabama, residents now cleaning up after an EF1 tornado sliced through the area, damaging homes and downing trees. More severe storms are expected to slam that state before moving up the coast. Michelle Grossman joins us now for more on that track. Michelle?
Hi, Gabe. Hi, Gabe. So great to see you. Yeah, another big storm headed our way. And it has everything. It has heavy snow. It has heavy rain, even the threat for severe weather. So let's take a look at radar showing you where it is right now and then what we expect over the next several days. So where you see the blue, that is the snow falling in the central plains to the upper Midwest. We have rain in northern Florida, and that's going to be the case over the next several days. So we have a ton of winter alerts. 50 million Americans under some sort of winter alert. Where you see the white, that's your winter weather advisory. The blue, the winter storm watch. The pink, your winter storm warning. So as we go throughout the next 48 hours, this is what we expect. First, we have that cold front that's moving through the middle of the country. That's going to slide off to the east. It's going to bring snow from Arkansas to the Great Lakes. And then we have an area of low pressure along the Gulf Coast. That's going to bring heavy rain and the threat for nighttime tornadoes in the southeast. But look what happens on Saturday. They're going to join forces. It's going to intensify. It's going to bomb off the coast, and that's really going to bring some gusty winds and some heavy snowfall in the interior parts of the Northeast and New England. That is for Saturday. Also watching for more severe weather in the southeast. And then it moves out of here Saturday night, and we are left over with frigid conditions. You can see some lake effect snow. Temperature so frigid on Sunday despite the sunny skies. So as far as the snowfall goes, we're looking at a foot of snow in some parts of New England, also in parts of interior Northeast. And then as we slide down on the warm side, we are looking at heavy, heavy rain too. Gabe?
A lot to watch for this weekend, Michelle. Thank you. Still ahead on Top Story tonight, director arrest outrage. The new video showing Black Panther director Ryan Coogler in handcuffs after he was wrongly assumed to be a bank robber. His reaction tonight. Plus, the crash involving a commuter train in California. Multiple people hurt. What caused the fiery scene? And the officer who used her own car to stop an alleged drunk driver, now speaking out about what motivated her last-minute decision. Stay with us. Back now with new video showing Atlanta police detaining a well-known director after he was mistaken for a bank robber. But he was just trying to withdraw money from his own account. Our Emily Ikeda explains the troubling incident.
But I just had guns drawn for taking money off my own account.
Tonight, growing outrage as newly released video shows famed director Ryan Coogler being handcuffed in January after he was wrongly assumed to be a bank robber.
Hey, sir. Hey, man. Do me a favor, man. Come this way. Put your hand behind your back.
The standout filmmaker in town for production of Black Panther's sequel, visibly shocked and confused when Atlanta police suddenly approached him and drew their guns.
What's going on, my man? Trying to put money on my own.
Coogler had been trying to take out over $10,000, according to the police report, passing a withdrawal slip to a teller with a note written on the back to be discreet when handing him the cash. The Bank of America staffer, who police label a pregnant black female, told officers her computer flagged it as a high-risk transaction and that she was alarmed by the note provided here by TMZ.
And every time I ask him like a question, he's like, look at the note.
She called 911 despite Coogler presenting his debit card and ID.
So I said, do you have your ID? He did give me his ID. It was a California ID. But my stomach started turning. I'm like, okay, it just seems odd because you're making a withdrawal, but you hand me a note on the back of a deposit slip. And you keep telling me, look at the note, but you don't want to talk to me. So I'm already okay, He's just acting really it's just weird.
Coogler, along with 2 people waiting for him in the parking lot, briefly detained. He explained to police he was trying to avoid drawing attention when requesting such a large sum of money for his safety.
I don't write down on a note how much I went out, and then I don't went and ran through the money counter right there at the desk. The whole bank ends up looking at me.
Tonight, social media erupting in frustration. A tweet from Bernice King reading, "I just don't think so many understand or are even trying to understand the trauma he was subjected to." Others pointing out how his directorial debut, Fruitvale Station, depicts a law enforcement incident that left a man dead.
Oh, wow. Like that even real police, man.
Bank of America says it deeply regrets that this incident occurred. It never should have happened, and we have apologized to Mr. Coogler. Police, too, calling the incident a mistake by Bank of America, acknowledging Mr. Coogler was never in the wrong. Officers uncuffing the Wakanda legend roughly 15 minutes after talking with him.
Because of the seriousness of the call, we don't just come out, and unfortunately in a situation like that, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. We detain and then we ask questions later.
And Emily Ikeda joins us now in studio. Emily, what is Ryan Coogler saying about all this?
Well, you could see in that body camera video, he was visibly shaken. He says this should have never happened, but the Bank of America did address it to his satisfaction, adding, quote, "We have moved on." Gabe.
Emily, thank you. Next to the extraordinary moment caught on a dash cam, a highway patrol officer using her car to stop a suspected drunk driver heading directly toward the path of a 10K race. NBC's Carrie Sanders spoke with the brave officer about what led her to make this life-saving decision.
The moment of impact caught on a dash cam. This all unfolding, say investigators, after a suspected drunk driver would not stop driving on the closed highway that leads to the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. The road was closed to traffic because close to 7,000 runners had gathered Sunday to race over the iconic bridge that spans Tampa Bay. It was a last-minute decision, Trooper Tony Shuck positioning her car to block the driver, who investigators estimate was driving more than 70 miles per hour.
Was there any training for this, or did you just operate on instinct?
Yeah, we don't have any type of training to go head-on with a vehicle like that. It was ultimately instinct because I knew that I was the last line of defense for those runners on that bridge.
Before a wall of cameras today, the mother of 2, a 26-year law enforcement veteran, was brought to tears as she relived this life or death decision she made.
I've never been in this position. I've never been in this position where I've had to put myself for somebody else.
But that's exactly what she did, which is why she's being hailed a hero. Among the runners that day who could have been in the path if the speeding car wasn't stopped, James Judge.
It's just not only unbelievable, it's heroic in every aspect of the word.
The driver of the BMW, now identified as 52-year-old Kristen Watts, arrested for, among other things, driving under the influence. Detectives say they finally got a blood alcohol test from her 6 hours after the crash, and she registered a .09. .08 is legally drunk in Florida.
When I was standing there with her that morning, when she was laying in the median, she was very vocal, belligerent. She was very, I'll use the word non-compliant.
It was just a situation where I knew there were people there, and I'm thankful it was me. I'm thankful that she didn't get past me.
And Carrie Sanders joins us now from the Sunshine Skyway Bridge near the site of that accident. Carrie, you know, we're of course so glad to see that heroic officer out of the hospital and able to talk to you today. How's she doing physically?
You know, it's such a good question because she was in that car and got slammed really hard. So Trooper Tony Shuck says, yes, she is sore, she is beat up. She didn't want to get into the specifics about the medical conditions, but it's going to be a while before she comes back to work, not only because of the physical pain that she's still enduring, but also the psychological pain. You know, a lot of people have reached out to her wanting to give her something. And she says, look, first of all, ethically, can't take presents. She says her living room room looks like a floor shop. She has so many flowers. But she is in law enforcement. Her husband is a deputy. Her son is in the academy. Another son is in the Air Force. She believes in service. So she says if anybody wants to give something in return for what happened here, she recommends that people give it to the Towers, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, which is supports those who work for our country in service. And finally, she says, you saw her car, her trooper vehicle, the Tahoe, destroyed. So if Chevrolet wants to give her a new Tahoe, she says, that would be nice. Gabe?
Wouldn't be a bad reward. Just saying. Carrie, thank you. Coming up, we have some breaking news. The sentence just handed down to Jussie Smollett. Plus, new video showing an officer in Washington state racing towards flames to save an unconscious driver. And shocking allegations of shackles and solitary. The NBC News investigation into a juvenile facility in Louisiana that critics call a child prison. Stay with us. Now to Top Stories news feed, and we begin with a fiery crash in California when a commuter train hit a vehicle on the tracks. It happened around 10:30 this morning in San Bruno, south of San Francisco. You can see the aftermath here. Officials say the collision involved on-track equipment. At least 13 people were hurt, including a train crew member and an equipment operator. Plus, body cam video showing a sheriff's deputy in Washington state rushing to save a man from a crash-burning car. It happened Monday. You can see the officer dodging flames before dragging the non-responsive driver from the front seat. Officials say the driver crashed into a trailer in a parking lot. He was arrested on suspicion of DUI. And now to breaking news. A sentence has just been handed down to disgraced Empire star Jussie Smollett after he staged a hate crime against himself. So we want to get right to Jesse Kirch, who joins us live with those breaking developments from Chicago. Jesse?
Gabe, just in the last few moments, right behind us here in a Cook County courtroom, Jussie Smollett was remanded into custody. He has been sentenced to 30 months probation, which will include 150 days, which he will have to spend behind bars here at the Cook County Jail. He was just taken into custody. He was screaming as he was escorted out of the courtroom, "I am not suicidal," and continuing to proclaim his innocence. He will also have to pay over $120,000 in restitution. He faces a $25,000 fine. And again, he is now going to be spending the night, as of now, behind bars in a Cook County jail. We want to show you now what has unfolded over the last several hours here today.
Court's in session.
In court today, prosecutors sharing a letter from the city of Chicago and its police department speaking to the damage Smollett has done.
A cost that can never be measured. It's the harm caused by reducing the likelihood of actual victims of hate crimes willing to report these crimes.
The city also claiming Smollett's hoax cost police more than $130,000 in overtime to chase down a threat that didn't exist. Today's sentencing, the latest chapter of a bizarre, years-long legal saga. In 2019, Smollett claimed two masked men hurled racial and homophobic slurs at him, threw chemicals at the Empire Star, and tied a noose around his neck. There were doubts the incident was legitimate, but he spoke out about the alleged attack.
If I had said it was a Muslim or a Mexican or someone black, I feel like the doubters would have supported me a lot.
Soon after, Chicago police announced Smollett staged the whole thing with two associates.
Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations?
His associates, the Osundairo brothers, testified against the actor, saying Smollett paid them to attack him outside his Chicago home. Smollett testified there was no hoax, but a jury convicted him. Smollett's defense submitted over 80 letters in support of leniency. Today, his older brother and 92-year-old grandmother speaking directly to the judge.
Jussie does not have malice or hatred toward anyone, and it is truly unfortunate that his reputation has received so many negative connotations.
I ask you, the judge, not to send him to prison. If you do, send me along with him.
And Jesse Kirch back with us live from Chicago. Jesse, you mentioned that there was an outburst from Smollett as he was led away. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I want to read to you his final words as he was escorted out of the courtroom by the justice officials. I am not suicidal. I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago. And this is significant, Gabe, for multiple reasons. First off, earlier in the proceeding, Smollett was asked directly by the judge if he wanted to say anything. Smollett's legal team had said he was not going to make any comments alluding to the possibility of an appeal, and Smollett declined to speak earlier. And also, the judge, as well as the prosecution, had been pointing out that because Smollett has been convicted, he essentially perjured himself when he testified in court, saying that there was no hoax. And again, Smollett's final words as he was escorted out of the courtroom, convicted and now sentenced to time behind bars, were that he was still innocent. Gabe?
And Jesse, I'm being told that we now have part of that outburst. Let's play it.
No, I would just like to say to Your Honor that I am not suicidal. That's what I was about to say. Okay. I am not suicidal. Okay. I am not suicidal. I am innocent, and I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this.
And Jesse, we just heard from Smollett right there just moments ago, the breaking news. Has there been any reaction from his family at this point?
We do expect to hear from his defense attorney outside of the courtroom. Now the proceedings are wrapping up, and you could tell as we were watching things unfolding there in the courtroom, Gabe, that his defense team was trying to get the judge to allow that jail time to be suspended for the time being. But Smollett was taken out of the courtroom by those involved with the courts here. So we're going to look for more reaction from his family. But we know that his family, his supporters, have been pleading for leniency, pleading for the judge to not sentence him to any time behind bars, but the judge clearly took that into consideration as well as other factors and came up with what he decided was the proper sentence. Gabe?
Dramatic developments in court in Chicago late today. Jesse Kirch with the breaking news for us. Jesse, thank you. In collaboration with the Marshall Project and ProPublica, shocking allegations at a Louisiana juvenile facility. Incident reports and accounts of minors left in solitary confinement for 23 to 24 hours a day, shackled outside their cells. Zincle Esamoah has the story.
A juvenile facility in Louisiana is accused of violating the civil rights of minors. Now, advocates and families are speaking out.
He's basically being housed like a death row inmate.
Right now, he's been in 24-hour solitary.
NBC News, ProPublica, and the Marshall Project conducted a 4-month-long investigation into the Acadiana Center for Youth in St. Martinville. What critics call a child prison run by Louisiana's Office of Juvenile Justice, or OJJ.
We're told not many people have seen it, so we will see how this goes.
So we're not able to see or...
No, ma'am. I'm sorry.
We've never been inside, but obtained exclusive video from a former St. Martinville staff member. And what we've heard is disturbing.
His nose is bleeding. There's blood all over the floor. Being beat up right now.
According to OJJ incident reports and firsthand accounts, the 24-cell juvenile facility held minors in cells for 23 or at times 24 hours a day, subdued teens with police-style maneuvers, and at times held minors in shackles, or what the facility calls leg irons, outside their cells. According to the OJJ, most of the juveniles are Black. St. Martinville also failed to provide education to minors for at least 3 months.
We were working to get that established the entire time. That was not something that we were just being negligent on. All of the things that we are providing them by law are on board now.
But those who've been inside say conditions are unacceptable. Rashad, a Black 16-year-old, is one of them. This is his lawyer.
I believe that the conditions under which he was being confined violated his rights.
We're using Rashad's middle name to protect his identity. He was moved to St. Martinville last summer.
He was not receiving the substance abuse counseling that had been ordered by the court.
The judge immediately ordered he be removed from the facility. But today, there are still youth at St. Martinville, like 16-year-old Ben. This is his bedroom. He hasn't been in it for 2 years.
Do you have access to school right now?
No, ma'am.
Ben was sentenced to state custody in 2020 and moved to St. Martinville in December.
Even worksheets, nothing to do at all, no school at all.
Sometimes, like, I only got them once.
There are no teachers? You haven't seen any teachers there?
No.
The treatment of these youth violates widely accepted standards for juvenile detention. Ben's mother, Rebecca McDonald, says she wasn't informed her son had been moved to St. Martinville for 3 weeks. When she finally heard his voice,
and he would be crying. And my son is not that type of person, so I knew something was up. They treat them like dogs.
Louisiana's Juvenile Justice Reform Act Implementation Commission also says they were not formally notified about the facility.
It was opened in a shroud of secrecy
until advocates raised the issue.
The OJJ declined multiple requests to tour the facility and denied a count of extended solitary confinement and use of shackles outside cells. The OJJ called the facility a, quote, temporary fix used for youth who are, quote, not therapy ready.
We don't have the facilities nor the manpower to hold them in those dormitory settings.
But a former St. Martinville staff member whose identity has been concealed disagrees and called out staff treatment of minors.
A lot of them lack basic respect. They treat those kids like crap. One guy got in trouble for pepper spraying one of those kids. Really think that this facility is the worst possible thing as it runs now.
There are at least 31 youth who have been through the facility. On at least 2 occasions, youth harmed themselves, with multiple instances of minors escaping.
In the case of Rashad, his guardian remains concerned about his mental well-being since release. Ben remains in the facility, now facing new charges. His mother hoping for his release or transfer.
But does he have aspirations, beyond what he's got himself into?
I don't know if he still does.
And Zincle Asamoah joins us now. Zincle, this is a really alarming report. Is anyone talking about a lawsuit or changes in legislation?
Absolutely, Gabe. So Rashad's lawyer says a lawsuit is not off the table, and he says if he was to sue on behalf of his client, it would be for a violation of his civil rights under state and federal law, and he says it would be against the OJJ, or the Office of Juvenile Justice. So that's something to look ahead for. But in terms of legislation, we have heard from a Democratic representative who introduced legislation that would limit the amount of time minors can be in solitary confinement to 4 hours, and also centralize the process so that parents know when their children are moved, because we saw that come up. And Gabe, I think beyond the legalese, right, and beyond the lawsuits, ultimately this is about lives. And that's what advocates really drove home, is that these juvenile justice systems are not meant to be like adult prisons. These youth are meant to be prepared to leave the system. And they say that's just not happening, Gabe.
Such an important story, Zincle. Thank you. Coming up, evacuations in Indonesia after a volcano starts spewing hot ash and lava. What's happening in some towns there? Next. Now to top stories Global Watch. A volcano in Indonesia spewing lava and hot clouds of ash Thursday. It's on the densely populated island of Java. You can see it in this time-lapse video. That ash blanketing nearby villages and towns, forcing about 250 people to evacuate. No casualties were reported. U.S. intel agencies believe North Korea is testing a new intercontinental ballistic missile system. They think Pyongyang's 2 recent launches were designed to secretly test parts of it. A senior administration official calling this a, quote, serious escalation. And same-sex marriage is legal in Chile today. This couple was the first to get married under the new law. They'd been together for 7 years and have 2 children. The couple had been in a civil union and told reporters that marriage is a significant step forward for their whole family. And when we come back, a Chicago couple's first big trip after tying the knot is to Ukraine, why they're planning to join the fight. Next. And finally tonight, a story of courage and commitment. One Chicago couple is heading to Ukraine just days after tying the knot. For newlyweds David and Maria from Chicago, it's not the honeymoon they expected. A trip to Ukraine.
You can't plan your life, but situation is bad.
The couple exchanged vows this weekend, asking wedding guests to bring supplies for the Ukrainian people and army.
Married, and my registry is, has night vision goggles and medical supplies.
It didn't take long for those supplies and Maria to start the long journey.
We collected all the stuff. It's like 2 huge bags.
Maria, who asked us not to use her last name, said she felt compelled to drop her life and music career in the U.S. to help those in her home country.
I don't want to go. I'd rather sit home and play my instrument and do my job. But it has to be done. They need to be stopped.
Just a few days after saying I do, Maria said goodbye to her new husband at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. She traveled to Poland earlier this week. David will join her once he gets a passport.
I'm going because I made her mother a promise that I would keep her safe.
The couple plans to cross the border into Ukraine to serve together.
It's chaos over there. So I want to help on the border, and when he arrives, we'll keep going and try to join this defensive fleet.
Maria taking to social media today to share her journey.
We're still waiting for Victor to pick up all the stuff for Kharkiv.
Although she hasn't joined the fight just yet, she's already helping Ukrainian refugees in Poland.
And we're going to the border of Ukraine and Poland, and I'm going to help to translate for refugees. So
the couple driven to serve not just each other, but a country in turmoil.
If I stop a couple of aggressors, I will feel better.
You can only turn a blind eye to people being bullied for so long.
Quite a honeymoon. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. For Tom Llamas, I'm Gabe Gutierrez in New York. Stay right there. More news now is on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.